And I've never worked in manufacturing, but I've had so many family members to where that's just what they did.
There is a line in which, like, you can be unhelpful by being too empathetic and by enabling.
Yeah. And we choose that, right? Because it's just kind of part of it when you run your own business or you're doing freelance work. But the creativity aspect of it, where it's like, I've got to make, a month's worth of content. Now, granted, that month's worth of content is different than last month's worth of content, but I've got to sit for like 10 hours and just do it.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Fuck Your Podcast. I'm Emma Pardo.
And I'm Katy Martin. And today we have our favorite special guest, David Skaggs, and we're here to discuss some big life changes. So, how have you been?
Good. Busy. Starting to ramp back up again. We're getting into wedding season.
Yeah.
As of the date of recording this podcast, I just got done with my first real wedding of the season, and I don't have a break until August now.
Dang. I know we've probably mentioned it, but anybody listening in the St. Louis area, if you're needing an absolutely stellar wedding videographer, you need to reach out to David because he does a fantastic job.
My company, we did a rebrand this year. So we were called Coterie Creative for a really long time. The SEO on that kind of dropped as another Coterie company existed in Missouri. And they went through a bit of an issue to where if you Google Coterie, Missouri, my company did not come up. There were allegations against another company that came up. So we did a rebrand. We're now called We Are Echoes, and we upped to do photography as well. So we added photography to our company. So I partnered with a couple photographers in St. Louis to start offering that as well. I just sent out a contract today, actually, which is pretty awesome. So yeah, it's been a lot of, new website, new style, new films, new marketing, all that kind of stuff. So it's been wild.
Love it. Yeah, this is going to be a hectic. You don't get a Saturday off, and sometimes it's Friday and Saturday.
I don't do doubles anymore. That is a thing that I have.
That's probably good.
Yeah, that is a thing that I have stopped doing since our last podcast of discussing burnout. I think was the last.
Yeah, you set that new boundary for you.
Yeah, so I stopped doing doubles just because the energy and the equipment tear, like the wear and tear on the equipment, the wear and tear on your body. It's too hard to do 2 10-hour days on your feet being creative full time. Because it's I tell my wife, like it's like you're literally nonstop creative for 10 straight hours. You are constantly problem solving. You are constantly like on your toes. You're constantly adapting and thinking and figuring out what the next shot is, and it's just exhausting. Like it's exhausting mentally, it's exhausting creatively, and then as I get older, it's getting harder physically. So I decided to stop doing doubles for my own sake, and so but I am still shooting pretty much every weekend from now until August.
Well, the mental load, the thing you mentioned, like when you're in the act, not only do you have like that whole mental fatigue and the mental load, like you said, of doing that for 10 hours straight, and then but basically if you did a Friday, Saturday, now you have a turnaround with basically the same deadline on 2 projects. So that's just adding. It's like, okay, well, I just stressed myself out for the next 2 to 4 weeks of editing because I booked these 2 jobs right next to one another.
Yeah. And when I was working full time in the advertising or marketing agencies that I worked for, I was doing projects 40 hours a week, editing, being creative, and then being paid to be creative, which, it sounds like I'm like, complaining about what I love, which isn't true at all. But it is just like very, I'm very lucky in the sense that I can pay my bills while being creative, where there are a lot of people who aren't able to do that.
Right.
But I was working 40 hours a week for an agency or for a marketing company or for, whatever company I was doing photography and videography for. And then I would shoot a wedding on Saturday, and then I'd have to edit as well. I remember 2021 was such a hard year because I literally could never get caught up because, even if I was able to turn a film around in 10 to 12 hours, which is on the low end of the amount of work it takes to do an edit, that plus 40 hours full time plus 10 hours of shooting a wedding on a Saturday, you're looking at, at least 60, if not 70 hours, and you're not making a dent in your queue because just because you finish one that week, you shoot another. So it's just like the goalposts were literally not getting shorter. They were just
moving. Yeah.
You know, the workload stayed the same. It just kept going. And, you know, I remember 2021 being so hard that it was just like I could never stop, you know, and that was the point when I decided, like, okay, I've got to figure this out, you know, and now we're in 2024. And it feels like 2021 was last week. But, you know,
I know it's weird that I just recently updated my parents' website, the bowling alley. They have an annual tournament every year, and it's weird seeing 2025, like reserve your spot for the 2025 year, and it's like that doesn't sound right because I don't even think it should be 2024 right now. That's where my mind is at.
I have to go get my driver's license renewed this week, and I'm terrified to see what year it's going to say when it expires again.
I think mine's
Like, oh,
2027.
2032. Cool.
I think
I
mine's
don't-
2027.
I think it's every 4 years. Well, I don't know.
No,
Is it? I think it's
maybe.
4 years.
No,
I-
it's more than that. I gotta switch my shit over to Texas still. I still haven't done. I'm so
Yeah,
behind.
my driver's license still has my parents' address, and I'm 35. I'm like, this isn't real yet. I'm not.
Yeah,
putting
that's
my-
fine. They still live there, right?
They're still there.
Yeah.
It's a permanent address. I could always go back.
All right, I have a
Right.
lot of stuff. My mom's so pissed because there's some things that I haven't switched over, like mail wise. And so every time she, like, I'm either in town or, you know, when she was visiting here, she just had a stack of mail. She was like, get this switched over. I'm tired of seeing your shit pop up in my house. I'm like, sorry. I'll get right on
Parents
that.
just open my mail.
Still haven't done it.
They're like, well, your father's name is David too, so we assumed it was his. I'm like, oh, really? Did you assume a B&H credit card was his? Like, sure, okay, that's cool. You thought that this Dungeons and Dragons thing that
Was
like,
your
came
dad?
to your
Subscription,
house
yeah.
was his? Yeah, all right, cool.
Well, then what they're gonna say is they're like, well, if you don't like it, then change the address.
Right.
Yeah, no, my mom and my stepdad don't look through my mail. They'll just send it to me. Or they'll call me and be like, do you want me to open this now or do you want me to like find a way to get this to you? I'm like, is what it is.
Send you a FedEx at the end of the month.
Right. So, David, what else is new since we've spoken to you last? That's been at least 8 months now since
Yeah.
we've had you on the
Gosh, wow.
podcast.
Might even have been more because I think the last time we were still at Oakville.
I
So
was-
we were at our other house because I was in the basement.
Oh, that is true. So I had just recently moved here. I'm gonna look that up, what date that episode came out.
Yeah, I
I'm
think
looking
it-
that. I'm looking now.
Let's
I was,
see.
gonna go to YouTube Studio so that way the vault the
It doesn't play.
doesn't play.
Let's see. I got Anchor pulled up.
Oh, that's smarter. Let's just look. I'm looking for David's picture. on
Were
the
you
phone.
the one to know what grinds my gears? I think that was David.
Oh, it was August.
Was
coming
it?
up on so 10 months.
Yeah, it was August.
Damn.
Yeah, been a minute.
Because
How's Madison doing in this timeline of things? How is she?
She's doing good. We lost her mom right around the time we did the last podcast.
I remember that.
You know, I don't remember if that happened. I feel like that happened after we recorded the podcast, but I'm not 100% sure. So yes, we lost Joni, unfortunately, in August of last year. We moved back into this house. So this is the house that we were living in for a little while, and we moved Joni in here because it's a lot smaller and it was a lot easier to manage. So when we lost her, we took possession of this house again. We repainted it. We kind of redid it so you can see behind me. This used to be our master bedroom that when we moved back in here, we opted to go to a smaller bedroom and turn this into a joint office so we could both kind of work in here. We are in the process of putting up a privacy fence and putting up a new pool in our backyard. That is our summer.
That's
all those
cool.
fun things that grown-ups do when they have a house.
That's
and now that you're
cool.
married.
Dude, privacy fences are so fucking expensive. It's stupid how much money it costs to put wood up on the edge of your property.
Yeah.
I'm not exaggerating. When I
Ours
say
actually just fell over here. I mean, luckily we rent, so it's not on us. But a couple weeks ago, we had a wild tornado like rip through the backyard, right? It actually formed in the backyard and like 8 miles from us touchdown. But we got like the start of it and we didn't notice it, but it was like behind one of our bushes, part of the fence fell over. And we just have to call up the landlord and say, hey, our fence is down.
the first quote we got, because we have a big yard, so we probably have about 300 feet of fence that has to go up around our property, because we have about a half acre. And the first quote we got, he gave us an estimate of in the $13,000 to $14,000
Oof.
realm to put up a fence, and I was just like, ouch.
You know what we should ask Mark, like what's the typical, well, Katie, you might know this. What's the typical profit on that for a company like that?
I mean, 30 to 40%.
Yeah, and that's just, I get it, but holy
Right.
shit.
Most construction projects are 30 to 40% markup. So, I mean, you can always DIY. You need a post hole digger some concrete, the fence material, and a nail gun. That's all you need. And patience.
I don't have any of those.
And four buddies to come help you do it.
Also don't have them.
Story of my life here. I keep telling myself I'm gonna get out of the house and go make friends here in Texas. That's a lot of work. I really don't care to do
Right?
it.
It's like dating in your 30s.
Yeah, I'm past my prime for making friends.
But yeah, no, besides that, so I've been back full-time freelance. I was let go. So I was working agency up until August of last year. So right around the time we had our last podcast, I was let go from the company that I worked for. There was another round of company layoffs. I survived the first one and I didn't survive the second.
Man,
I was let go while halfway through a shoot, a 3-city tour to shoot 2 projects for the Army-Navy football game is what
Oh, wow.
I was doing a project for. I was shooting content that was going to go in essentially a 3D like hologram kind of thing that was going to be put up at the games where like the coaches come in and they're like, all right, let's go do this. And like it like spoke to the crowd. So I was shooting this like hyper specific. It had to be framed the right way, angled up. There had to be a shadow. Like it was very specific. And I also had clearance to go to Annapolis and West Point to shoot these. So I flew on my own dime. I was being repaid, but I had to pay for it on my own. I flew to Annapolis and I flew to New York to go to both of these things. And in between New York at West Point and Annapolis, it was a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So I flew back on Tuesday. I flew to Annapolis Monday night. I had Tuesday to kind of rest and recover. And then I was shooting at Annapolis on Wednesday. I get a random 15-minute meeting on Teams and I was let go from a hotel with like 2 queen beds behind me with a shoot in like 14 hours. I had to be on Annapolis's location. The department that let me go had no idea. They didn't inform my direct superiors that they were letting me go. Nothing. So they're like, yeah, so you can pack up your stuff and you can head home. Like, meaning like I could pack up my desk and head home. They didn't know where I was. So they were like, do you have any questions? And I was like, I have a few. Yeah.
how the fuck am I getting back home?
Right.
I was like, my first question is like, do you see behind me that there are 2 queen beds here? This isn't just like a weird room in my house. This is a hotel that I'm on
That you
location
sent me
for
to.
you.
Right.
Yeah. So they told me like they'll have to figure it out and they'll get a contract shooter in to do it and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay. So I started packing up and I changed my flight to go home. And they called me as I was walking out to my rental car and asked me to stay. And do the shoot.
No.
Yeah.
Oh,
They
I
asked
would
me
have
to
said,
stay- They asked me
fuck
to
no.
stay on salary and do the shoot. And I was like kind of in shock. So I said yes, which I should have done. I should have stayed for the shoot, but I should have charged them a freelancer rate, which would have been like $5,000.
Right.
But is what it is. So I went back full-time freelance, which has been great, honestly. So I always kind of had good connections to do freelance work. So from August until about 2 months ago, I was full-time freelance. It was good. Lots of nonprofit, lots of corporate work, staying really busy, things like that. And because I was so nervous and because I was like, I'm money hungry, I kind of overworked myself and I kind of priced myself at a point where scaling, there's a glass ceiling. I can't scale and make any real profit.
Right.
So I kind of keep myself at, about 110% booked, which causes, I keep myself at about 110% booked, which is 10% overdone, and I can't really get anybody to kind of cover for me because I would lose money essentially based on the prices that I am keeping myself at. So what I opted to do is I opted to cut out about 50% of my clients, keep my rates about the same, and I was able to cut out the problematic clients, the clients that don't pay on time, the clients that I have to bicker back and forth with and things like that. And I took a non-creative front office employee facing job at my parents' company. I came in originally to help them with their branding and their marketing, and very quickly realized that they needed help on the people side of things. More so as I kind of came in and I was like, look, you guys moved, my parents moved, their company moved out to Pacific. They were downtown St. Louis. They're now out in Pacific where they own a building. And they're struggling to keep people out there. Driving out to Pacific is hard. So they utilize a lot of temporaries and, they're paying a lot of money for that. So very quickly realized like, okay, there's nobody in here right now with any sort of understanding of what good company culture is. 3 of us know, and this was my pitch. I have worked for companies that have had really excellent company culture, and the 3 of us have worked for companies that have really bad company culture, and while I'm sure the intent to have a good company culture was there, misunderstanding what is important to your employees and misunderstanding what is important to you can cause a disconnect to where people don't want to stay, and it sucks that the company that we worked for, they had an amazing team, which you guys know, but we just didn't, the connections weren't there to make it make sense for us. And that's kind of where I felt like my parents' company was going, is I was like, you guys are not gonna go out of business because you aren't busy enough, because the work's not there. You're gonna go out of business because the work is there and you don't have the people to run it. And then the people who do run it, are insulted and don't want to work and don't want to show up and are willing to just like no call, no show. And then you don't know what you can run and what you can't run. I was like, so you need somebody to essentially do HR and employee advocacy. So now I am essentially paid to be empathetic to factory workers, which it keeps me very fucking busy. Because for the first time ever, these people have someone they feel like they can talk to that, one, is a member of the family that is kind of like in the leadership team, but also doesn't know shit about injection molding.
Right.
Like I can't go in there and fix a machine. I don't know what causes this thing to happen to this thing. What I do know is, oh, you're not feeling good about the way that a supervisor spoke to you? Okay, tell me what happened. That's unacceptable. Okay, it's time to go have this conversation. It also opens myself up to like having hard conversations, like we have to go on LOAs, and we have people who have deaths in the family, and unfortunately there are rules to like how many bereavement days you get and things like that.
Right. There are those boundaries that you have to
You
have.
gotta have a standard, right?
Yeah.
It's not an easy job to do, and like as of right now the water is so muddy that like I have to kind of unfortunately like clean it up, which means conversations aren't the easiest right now. I would love to get to a point where like, okay, we can make exceptions here and there, because the lines are so clean cut. It's very clear when an exception is being made and when it is not.
Right.
But as of right now, we're not able to do that, so we're kind of working on it through the summer, and I really like it. It's really nice to be creative when I want to be creative and do the things that I enjoy doing, as opposed to have to be creative because I have to keep the lights on, where I have to take projects.
Waters it down,
Yeah, I would have to do projects that I wasn't passionate about because, I need $500 right now. Like, I got it, So it's very nice. As I said earlier, it's very nice, and I'm very grateful that for the longest amount of time I was paid to be creative. But creativity is not a light switch. It's not a thing where like, all right, 8:00, I'm gonna start being creative until 5:00, and now I don't have to be, and now I can go home and I can watch TV. There's inspiration that has to strike. And if you try to force it all the time, you're just not going to be able to sustain it, And I did this in my 20s where I worked, for my parents' company as a machine operator, where I just took a break. I got burned out and I didn't want to do it anymore. I wanted to do simple little projects, and that's kind of where I am, where it's like I just wanted to break from
something different,
from the monotony of creativity. Like that's
crazy to think. I bet. Talk about different spectrum. Talk about like opposite ends of the spectrum, because I bet you with a certain level of certainty that people that work in a manufacturing setting would not think of the creativity becoming monotonous. And people like us would think about the manufacturing world as a job that's very monotonous. And I've never worked in manufacturing, but I've had so many family members to where that's just what they did. My grandparents either worked at the steel mill or Boeing, or my dad made ammunition, and my brother still works at a steel mill. So they do the same thing over and over and over. So, you get some people who still really take pride in their job, even though it's monotonous. But like, to me, I would say, man, I think I would get burnt out doing the same thing all of the time. But then you look at the flip side of it with people like us, the mental load is what is monotonous because of everything.
I was about to say.
So the mental load is where the burnout and the monotony comes from, because you're always feeling under a certain amount of pressure. And we choose that, right? Because it's just kind of part of it when you run your own business or you're doing freelance work. But the creativity aspect of it, where it's like, I've got to make, a month's worth of content. Now, granted, that month's worth of content is different than last month's worth of content, but I've got to sit for like 10 hours and just do it. So, and when you're doing the same thing on like editing, like God bless you, you know, and your editing skills. But I can imagine when you have that workload, not only dreading the hours that you're going to sit in front of a computer, but there's probably things that you look at something and you go, man, it's good and the client's happy, but I feel like I gave it 80% because I just don't have the time.
Yeah, it's a B minus.
Right.
Nobody's sitting and putting a B minus up on the fridge.
Right.
It's good enough, you know.
Yeah.
It's good enough, but it's good enough to get the job done, but it's not good enough that you're proud of.
And when you do that over and over and over, because, and again, clients are happy, but it's what you're doing to yourself where you're like, ugh, I mean, that could have been just this much more if I had the time. If I didn't.
I was gonna say there's another spin on this that I've experienced, is creating something that is maybe that B minus, and then a client coming in saying they want it this way, and it takes it from a B minus to like a fucking D, and then you're just like, but
Yeah.
what's so Go ahead.
Sometimes revisions make things better, but more often than not, they make them worse.
Right. Yeah. And so the thing is like, from at face value, people could look at creatives or graphic designers and be like, you get paid to make things look pretty all day. Like, I wish. People don't realize the amount of mental strength you have to when it comes to content creation, especially like creating graphics. Like, I do 2 weeks at a time for clients, and it takes me 2 hours to do 2 weeks of 10 totally different graphics. However, half the time I'm going, oh my God, I don't even know what I'm gonna like. It's so much mental strength just to make sure it looks different but on brand at the same time, that I look back at the bowling alley when I worked at the bowling alley. I was like, damn, I had it so easy there. So easy. Like, it was a lot of work and I hated it. Got so burnt out on it. But oh my God, it was so easy.
I can't remember the last easy job I had. I'm too old. Just too old. Maybe when I was like in my 20s and worked at the bank. Just had to count money all day. It was so fun.
So fun.
It was a fun job. I mean, I think that's really awesome too, David. Just like the spin of having more of an advocate in the manufacturing world, because I've honestly seen a bunch of videos about it recently where because I'm always on like HR or hiring TikTok, you know, like that still comes up in my feed. So, and a lot of it stems from the manufacturing world where it's about, we get it, it's about production. You hire someone to do a job. In some instances, I bet there's probably aspects of the job that are very simple. You're part of an assembly line, you know, you do a certain task, you do it over and over and over for 8, 10, 12 hours, and it's great because it's part of the bigger picture. And then you have more complicated ones like some of your machine operators, you know, like there's going to be to where a lot of environments like that are just so focused on just get back to work, just do your job. And they do get paid. And here's the thing, even with creatives, when you do a job, of course we're getting paid for it. But the difference when someone just says thank you or great job, like just keeping a little bit of that inspiration so that they keep, because motivation is internal, inspiration is external. So if you can give them just that little nudge to where they stay motivated to work, and somebody that just says, hey, I hear you, that's a valid issue, your feelings are valid, whether or not that's a problem we can solve right now, but it's something that I will bring to someone's attention to discuss. You know, like hearing somebody who feels like they don't have a voice. And on the rare instance I've seen, and again, these are like worst case scenario, like, and there's been 2 or 3 different videos where someone and this was in an office setting. One was manufacturing, one was in an office setting. Somebody, a coworker died. So like, you know, the office setting one, like the person was on a work trip, died in their hotel room, and again, their entire existence to the rest of the company was just like summed up in an email. And this was a person with a family. And then, God forbid, in manufacturing, you have people who could die at work depending on the level of like how, you know, you're dealing with equipment, like there's danger involved, accidents, all that kind of stuff. You know, my brother told me the story where they thought for sure the guy was dead. He ended up surviving, but he got pinned between 2 steel beams at work. And then when they mopped the blood up, they're like, get back to work. And I'm like, all these people witnessed that. And nobody taking into consideration, like, that's a friend of theirs. That's someone that they work with on a regular basis. But they're just like, nothing to see here, get back to work.
Yeah, it's entry-level work, which means it's very trainable, which means anybody could arguably do it if you're physically fit enough to be able to lift 50 pounds, right?
Right.
That doesn't change the fact that people are people.
Exactly.
Respect is deserved, you know? And I mean, long story short, at least in what I have experienced, you are in a different climate of employee-employer relationships.
Right.
This new generation of people entering the workforce have grown up in a post-COVID world where gigs are more lucrative. You know, you can have, like me, I work 2 20-hour gigs a week for my parents, and then I have
Right.
a 20-hour a week client up in Kansas City, and then I work for myself. So I work for 3 different companies, but I do 60 hours worth of work a week, and I'll take 32,000 for 20 hours a week over 55 for 40, because you can't do 2 40-hour gigs.
Right.
Don't have the time. So like you could be making 6 figures by doing the same amount of work in a gig lifestyle, and this new generation understands that, and the old generation doesn't. They don't get why you would want to work 20 hours a week, why you don't want to work 40, because they've got another job where they're doing 20 hours a week. They're not just sitting at home those 20 hours.
Right.
And that's the thing that I'm hoping to teach, and that's also the thing that I'm hoping to learn more about. I go to
something I try to
therapy.
tell them, too.
I literally have a therapy appointment when we wrap up this podcast. Like I'm going from this to my therapy appointment.
Which
Right.
I need to get into therapy.
Dude, it's a life changer.
But I'm a 26-year-old freshly off my dad's insurance, so
They don't insurance typically doesn't cover it anyway.
Right.
But it's $100. It's typically like $100 a session, and look at it as investing in yourself.
yeah.
I've been in therapy for 3 years now, almost weekly. So I'm paying like $400 a month. I have 2 therapists right now. So I'm paying like almost a full mortgage for my mental health, because I just need, I have a therapist that I bitch to, like where I'm just like, this is what happened this week. And she just like lets me go, and I get to do bits, and I get to like pay somebody to laugh at my jokes, which is great. And then I have one that like actually helps me. That like is like, hey, help me not have a panic attack.
Right.
And like I just switch off week by week, basically. Like 1 week I'll bitch, 1 week I don't have panic attacks. Like that's basically like what's going on. And like but it's so amazing. And like because I've learned how to communicate healthily, because I've learned how to, and Katy, like you can attest to this because you've known me for almost 10 years now, where like it's weird to think about, but like we've known each other for like 7.
That's crazy. I saw a memory the other day on Facebook. It was like 2018.
Yeah.
Which seems like it wasn't that long ago, but that was long ago.
It's starting to get there, right? That's more than 5 years ago.
I was like 26, 27 when we met, so like, because it was Erica that introduced us.
Right.
So like the communication styles I had when I was in my late 20s to who I am as a person now, like, are just night and day.
Oh, for sure.
Like, and that's partially just growing up, but it's also, it's partially just naturally maturing, but it's also like taking stock in myself and things like that. So like, I want to now use those skills that I learned to help other people. And I'm never going to be a therapist because I don't have the patience for that kind of shit, but like, I can be like, look, here's what helps me, Now, that being said, I just got done last night complaining to a friend where I was like, I am over a victim first mentality. I have been experiencing a whole lot of like, well, everybody's opinion is valid, and while yes it is, and you're allowed to have an opinion, at the same time not everybody's opinion is truth.
Sure.
So there's like a line of like, some people's opinion falls closer to the objective truth, so like there is a line in which like you can be unhelpful by being too empathetic and by enabling.
Yeah, you can't enable, because you can do the same thing with feelings. Like your feelings are valid, like what you're feeling is valid, but what the reason what you might be feeling might not be based on the truth. Right. So it's kind of the same thing. Like, I'll acknowledge you're upset, I'll acknowledge that you're frustrated, I'm not taking away from that and saying that you should or shouldn't be, but we have to be able to communicate like effective adults to say, well, is this really the root issue, for that person to say yes or no. And because at the end of the day, if I'm not doing something wrong, intentional, detrimental, your feelings are a choice. So there's a balancing act there too, because and again, you can don't put yourself in a dangerous position being like, in that advocacy role of just being a sounding board for people to come bitch all the time, because that can be a slippery slope.
Right.
Right.
So I don't tell people I'm doing HR. I don't tell people I'm doing recruiting. I'm not doing any of those kinds of things. I'm an employee advocate who is there to make sure that the employees are if you can't massively overpay, then you need to make the job reasonable and enjoyable to an extent.
Sure.
You know,
That their voice is
nobody
being heard.
Right. Nobody enjoys going and pulling hot parts off of a mole, right?
Right.
Like nobody's like, this is what I wanted to do when
This
I
is
was
my
a kid."
passion.
Right. Nobody loves doing it. But if you don't love doing it and you're abused, fuck that. Like there's no amount of money that you can be paid to where you'll stay. Look at us. The three of us were, you know, between the three of us, I think we were paid close to $200,000 total, and we enjoyed what we did.
Mm-hmm.
But we didn't enjoy how we were treated, and we walked away from arguably, and I'm not speaking for you, Katy, but Emma and I walked away from one of the easiest jobs, like when it came to the actual creation.
Oh yeah, well, here's the
Not
thing.
the
Everything was stripped
implementation.
away. So it was
Not,
like,
not
maybe
the
do this.
implementation. Trying to convince someone to do what they thought was stupid was not easy. But
Right.
the actual creation of the things that we had to create was like
Simple.
okay, yeah,
was
cool.
so
See
easy.
you guys in 3 hours with a fully cut thing. You know,
Right.
like you
It
know,
could
like
have
some
it
of
could
the
have been more
graphics,
it could have
you
been
know.
more simple and straightforward. But like I get what you're saying, and I think some of that comes into the play with if you take somebody who is creative and like you have a team that's super collaborative, because I understood what you needed.
Yeah.
If a project was dumped in your lap with just the end goal,
Right.
and that's all that you were ever given.
Right.
you
Yeah.
were only ever given the end goal with no one in consideration to say, here's the 3 big chunks of information or planning that I need to make that happen. If I wouldn't have been there, you would have never gotten that. And so it's when you have a creative position in combination with someone who's trying to be black and white, do your job, I'm paying you to do your job, like that shit doesn't connect.
Right.
Right?
David, I need a 2-hour documentary.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. About what?
I don't know, man. Just follow me around and film me. Okay, that's not how that works.
Yeah, for the purpose of what?
Or it's like advertise this event. Okay, what dates? I don't know.
So-
Where is it at? I don't know. Go figure that out. David,
I mean,
remember we had to go scout out
I
event
watched the
places?
video the other day. I literally was scrolling through old videos on my phone because I was deleting a bunch of them, and I found like a 14-minute video of me and you just shit talking while walking through a park, being like, "Why are we here? What are we doing?"
I
Like,
literally it was like Emma and David, go do this, go see if it's good. And it was like a really good spot.
you're not figuring out on the fly. There's pacing involved. Like the reason that you're doing the documentary is for X.
Mhm.
And if you can't even communicate that, you have no business shooting a documentary.
right.
Now, could
100%.
amazing things be discovered, you know, throughout the course of everything that goes into a documentary? And I just want to add, you got to be kind of fucking interesting for somebody to follow you around with a camera all day.
Right.
Yeah.
You're not that interesting.
But like I
Yeah.
will say, like the one thing I do, if there's any creatives like listening to this, I guess really like the one thing that I do want to kind of say is like it is okay. The last time we talked, we were talking about burnout.
Yeah.
It is okay if you get to that point and you need to take a step back, because I think like my conversation last time was like the only way out of burnout is to get out of it. I mean, like it's realistically it's the only way. Once you're burned out, there's nowhere that you can go. I think I used an analogy that is you're like a can of soda rolling around in the floorboard of your car. That's what burnout is. Like, you know, if you just let it roll around, it's eventually going to explode.
Yep.
And then your car's covered in soda. That is being burned out. Right? The only way to not be covered in soda is to not allow the can to roll around for 6 months. Or if you're already covered, you got to get out of the car, wipe yourself down, and then wipe the car down, and then get back in the car and keep driving.
Right.
Getting out of the car and wiping yourself down, though, can be stepping back out of that kind of creativity as long as you can afford to pay your bills another way. I am very lucky in the sense that I have a family business that I could step into like that. You know, one day I didn't work there and the next day I did. Like it was very easy to do, you know, and I'm able to make the amount of money. It's lower than I made anywhere else, but it is still, you know, a relatively decent salary for 20 hours a week. You know, I'm very lucky. I'm very privileged in that sense, you know. Understandably, I do have a degree. I do have skills. I do have knowledge, you know. I'm not untrained labor, that's just like walking in like a nepotism hire.
Right.
But there is an element of nepotism in there. Not everybody is that lucky, but if you can figure out how to do it, it is not shameful to step away from that creative lifestyle for a little while if that's what you need in order to rediscover your passion for it. Because I lost my passion for creating. I told Madison, my wife, this at the beginning of this year, that I said 2024 is the year that I rediscover passion for doing what I used to love and not doing it for the money, because I began looking at it as every hour was dollar signs, every single thing. I was never like, ooh, this is a bonus and I get to do something with it. You know, it was always like, okay, how can I make more? 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 And I didn't, and like all we were doing is I was creating or I was drinking. That's all I did. If I wasn't creating something, I was drinking. If I wasn't drinking, I was creating something. And that's not a life to live.
Right.
You're damaging your liver and you're damaging your heart.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and I didn't want to do that anymore. So stepping back and taking a breath and doing what I enjoy, which is helping people, is something that I am very grateful that I am able to do and be paid. So it is okay to do. There's no shame in stepping away for the time being and then coming back to it when your mind and your body and your passion for it is better.
Yeah.
Because that's what I'm going to do. Because once this next project that I'm working on right now, when I do it, when I pull the trigger on it, I'm going to hit the ground fucking running on it, but I'm going to be ready to go. I'm going to be rested. I'm going to be recovered, and I'm going to be hungry for it. But right now I'm just not there, and I don't care. And, you know, I love making wedding films, but I don't like doing the other stuff, so I'm just not going to, and that's fine. You know, I feel confident in that decision. I feel good about it, and I think it's good for other people to feel that way too.
No, I think that's a great message. And for those of you that might be listening who maybe can't relate to the level of the like a creative position, you know, that you've done professionally, I mean, just take into consideration what you do professionally, and making a big shift, like it can be worth it. Like, not to, you know, maybe you just need something that's a drastic change. And I think people feel a lot of pressure. And again, it depends too how old you are, what level of responsibility that you have. But if you have that space, or you can create that space enough to say, I'm going to do something that's benefits me, to where I can focus on the things that I'm more passionate about. If it's taking a part-time job, if it's shifting into something else, like I think that's really important to give yourself permission to look at that as an opportunity.
Right.
It can also go the other way too. I mean, it can also be like, if your soul is dead because you're not liking the career that you are in, you can make a change the other way too. You know, a job is a job, whether you're a camera, whether you're a photographer, or whether you're a laborer.
Right.
If you're not happy, make a change, because every single person is replaceable in their career.
Yep.
It sucks to say, every single person is replaceable.
Absolutely.
Where you're not replaceable is in your life. If you're not
what you can't replace is the time you spent.
Right. So be happy with your life and work to support your life. Live to support your work.
Right.
Yep. Do something that completely serves you as a whole person. Oh gosh, there was a post that was basically that same thing, that, you know, your boss and your coworkers aren't going to be the ones that are going to miss you long term if you're not around anymore.
Right.
But your family and your kids and your friends, everybody outside of work, is who's going to miss you if something happens to you.
Right.
But, and on a funny note about careers, I just saw this post that pops up that says, "Stop trying to rap. We need electricians."
That's funny.
So there's opportunities everywhere.
I used to say that to one of a girl I dated before I got married. Every girl that I started dating that was not in a creative career, like that had stability.
Yeah.
When they saw me and like my career, they were like, I want to chase a passion too. Like, not everybody needs.
That's not meant for everybody.
Yeah. Shoe stores need managers.
Yeah.
You know, I hate it. Like, is it sexy? No, but they need to be done.
Right.
And some of those jobs, you have a gift that you can shut it off. I would say that's the one benefit about manufacturing. When you're not there,
you don't have to worry about it.
They're not
That's
calling
why
you.
I was at the bowling alley. When I wasn't there, I did not have to worry about it. And I could take that time to do whatever the fuck I wanted. Especially working from home. It's like the office never leaves. The office is always here.
Yep.
All right.
Alrighty. Well, all right. If you want to hear a topic, if you want some advice, if you just want to chat, you can reach out to us on Instagram at F__K or pod, or you could email me at Emma@99creatives.
Or Katy at Katy 99 Creatives.
If you want to hear more business related content, you can hop on over to our TikTok at 99 Creatives or Instagram at 99 Creatives. And don't forget to subscribe. We put out new episodes every Friday. Don't forget to subscribe or follow our podcast. We put out new episodes every Friday. Okay, bye. We'll see you Friday. Okay, bye.